Yeah, yeah. All right. Sweet action. Should be live now. Hello. What's up, dude? How you been, Mark?
I'm doing good. Busy,
Yeah.
getting ready for summertime, in the process of trying to open up our swimming pool, and I'm once again reminded that I hate it.
Yeah. I had a swimming pool one time and then never again. It's like, oh, there's a home. We were shopping around for homes. So like, it's got a pool. I was like, it's off the list. It's like
Yeah.
I don't even want to see it.
Yeah, we didn't go looking for one, but we found a really nice house we liked, and it is nice when it's
And it's
swimmable,
nice.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but my wife and I, talking about the 5-6 year plan, where we're gonna go, we're gonna move again, and she goes, "Would we get another pool? Like, could you live without it?" I'm like, "Do you realize I'm
Yeah.
the one taking care of it? If there's a future where I don't have that second job, I'm all for it." So
Yeah,
beside
that's a level of, I guess, financial success that I have yet to achieve in this life. That I have somebody who not only do I own a pool, but somebody else manages said pool. I'm like, no, we have a gym that we go to that's got
nice,
an incredible pool. It has a
yeah.
slide. The kids like it. I like it. There's lifeguards, and I don't have to clean it. And I'm like, this is the life, man. This is the way to be.
It's the way to go. Yeah, you know what? We all get regrets in life, right? That's one of mine is having the pool, but at least I didn't buy it
Yeah.
myself. So, but no, besides that, everything's good. Works good. You got me to play Final Fantasy 14.
I'm hoping we could talk some about that here
Yeah,
on today's podcast. I'm very excited. There's a lot going on this week in terms of news, especially today. So I don't know how much time we'll have for that. So if we don't get to that as just a subject, I really we'll have to obviously get you back on and we'll
yeah,
have some good time.
I'm
What's
happy
up,
to do
chat?
that.
How are y'all doing today?
How's no rest for the wicked
Dude,
shooter?
it's so good. It's it's this rare pairing. I keep saying it. Like, not only do I not want to set the game down, but I'm also been having the ability to play. And I think a large part of that is just the power of GeForce Now and my Logitech G Cloud, dude. Like, the fact is I can chill downstairs. Julie and I could be watching some documentary or whatever, and I can just be running the Crucible over and over again, and or going out and farming the open world stuff. And it's so thrilling. I haven't been able to play the last 2 days. I haven't been able to do anything outside of family and work the last 2 days, but Julie said that it is a high possibility that I might be
Ooh,
able to play and stream some tonight and actually like, have a decent chunk of time to game it up, which I'm very excited about.
that's very nice. Yeah, I've yet to touch it, even though I was generously given a copy. I want to get to it, but man, I'm so sucked into Final Fantasy 14 when I
Yeah,
do play on my PC or Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm finally playing that game, and I am blown away.
Xenoblade is incredible, and it's one of those like bucket list items that I'm like I started and then I set it down and went on to something else, and it's like, oh my goodness, like but I think it's definitely a game that I at some point need to finish.
Yeah, I'm working on one of my retrospective YouTube videos, and to that point, I'm describing Xenoblade Chronicles. It's not fine tuned yet, but it's basically that one ex girlfriend from college that you just like don't talk to for 4 months, but then like after a night with too many beers, you give a call again, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I'll return to this. But it's good. I'm really liking it, and I'm excited about the other two games in the series too. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, and it just, I think it's getting really good. I guys, if you're over here on the YouTube side of things, I got Mark tagged in the description of this video. If you guys aren't following him over at Late to the Game, you just released a video, and I'd like to explore a little bit of as a
sure,
topic regarding the Switch too. But
yeah.
I think the best compliment, I saw you tweet this out, and I totally agree with it. Like, somebody was like, how does this guy only have 200 some odd subscribers? The video quality and product, like, you did such a great job. Obviously, I'm a big fan of your voice. Like, you have I think, a really good voice. And maybe I'm biased because we're both Italians. Hey, but
Fair.
at the same time, like, yeah, I'm just like, guys, if you aren't following Mark over at Late to Game, I honestly think that if you go check out some of his videos, you'll probably will hit that subscribe button on him. I don't even have to plug you because as soon as that just comes up, you are putting out really good work.
I appreciate that. Speaking of Italians, there was some guy from Sicily that commented on my most recent video. It was kind of funny, but he's like, spaghettios aren't Italian. And I was like, I know that
I,
that was
you said that, and I was like, oh, he's gonna eat crap for that line.
Yeah,
But I thought it was
yeah.
hilarious. I thought it was hilarious because
Yeah, but it's real funny. It turned into this whole thing in the comment section. I was just like, some of my people from my community were having fun with it. I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from this. But yeah, I appreciate that, Brian. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy making videos on YouTube because
yeah,
it's
it's
a
fun.
real artistic and creative outlet for me.
It's super
And
fun.
yeah, and I'm glad I was able to learn Premiere. That thing was very daunting from the beginning, but yeah, I'm happy to talk about the Switch 2 news. I'm excited. I'm very excited about the potential Switch 2 we may be seeing maybe in
Dude,
June.
the Nintendo fanboy in me is just constantly just like, like, all right, what are we gonna do? And I'm just waiting to be slightly disappointed. Like it's always, I always feel like Nintendo gives you 90% of what you were really wanting, and then 10% like, oh, why do they choose to use friend codes again? Like, are we still
Yeah.
on in this archaic system? Like what gives? So it's them slowly, but honestly, they've been running a very incredible, profitable business. So when we talk about what we're going to talk about with Xbox, I think that will probably pair well with that. I don't know if Chili will be joining us. He might be joining us midstream, and Cole said he is unfortunately got booked up by a meeting, so it might just be us two hitting it,
Okay.
talking about video games, which is going to be great.
Awesome.
I do want to say to Gunther, who writes that they just got diagnosed with depression. Dude, yeah, that sucks. I struggle with that personally. And for me, like, just keep putting in the work. Make sure if you need therapy, like it's not a weakness. It's a serious thing. So just don't sit on it and don't slack on it, because it sucks. Because like I know anybody out there who suffers with depression, like, oh man, like that in and of itself is like it's something I wish, I wish that I wouldn't wish upon my enemies. That and anxiety too. Like those are
Yeah.
the things that are just like, what the hell's going on? All right, guys, just a couple show notes, couple thank yous. Thanks to Hex, Lord, and Jonathan for being members here at Ginger Prime. For those of you who are hanging out for the first time or new and don't know, once the live stream is finished, it will archive and it will be members only. The audio version of the podcast is free for everybody. You can always subscribe to it there, or you can also check out the video podcast over at Work the Game, where it will remain public as well. But one of the experiments I'm doing over the course of the next 30 days to see how it impacts the channel in terms of algorithm and performance is live streams will not necessarily will just go into members as kind of an archive, and I'm already seeing huge positive values off of that when it comes to like video averages and how YouTube decides it wants to handle certain things. So anyway, just an experiment, so you guys can let me know real time on your feedback. What's going on, Chrono? We got to get you in here. In fact, if you're free now, Chrono, let me just DM you this link if you want to come join. No pressure. But we've been just talking with Chrono about getting set up on the podcast as well. Let's see here. DM messages. Chrono. Where did I put you? We were chatting. Dadgum. Message history. There he is. All right. No worries, but there is the link if you want to just jump in and join us today, Chrono, as well. Outside of that, are you ready to go, Mark?
Let's go.
All right. I'm going to run the intro and let's do this thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Crystal Core Radio podcast. I was almost going to say project. Joining me today, Late to Game, aka Mark, a good friend of mine, guys. He makes really great content. His link is in the description. We might have a couple other guests join us mid-show as well, but we've got a ton to talk about. Just to kind of give you guys an overview, we're going to talk about No Rest for the Wicked. They're going to have a major update today. The devs are already teasing out that people get ready to buckle the heck up. We've got Xbox news and leaks that were really kind of hitting the internet, and it felt like a callback to February, but I'm really curious about where Mark falls. Switch 2 rumors are in the news as well. Mark started playing Final Fantasy 14, doing the ARR. So if we have time, I want to get into that discussion and get his thoughts in on the game in and of itself. But that's kind of the general overview. These are conversational podcasts, so it could go in any direction, any which way. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark. What are you playing, dude? What is the top of your mind right now?
You dragged me in. You dragged me in the Final Fantasy 14. I purchased that game so I'm a full even with the free trial, the memeable free trial that's existed. My one good friend a year ago was like, "You should get this game." I was like, "You know what? I'll just buy the DLCs too." Yada yada yada. I put about 60 hours in, made it probably halfway through A Realm Reborn, and then I just bounced off. But then your more recent letter to the editor or letter from the developer
Mhm.
reaction here on this channel is just like, maybe now's the time.
Yeah.
So I did it. I beat 2.0. I
Yes.
just did Defenders of Eorzea
Yeah.
last night. Yeah, yesterday stream I got past that. I think I got Shiva coming up next. I can instantly tell the quality change in just content after 2.0.
I really cannot wait to hear your thoughts when you go and you step into Heaven's Ward, because you were absolutely right on the track. It feels like it was this almost like the orchestra was just getting warmed up, and it just kind of builds and builds, and then it just kind of all of a sudden you're like, oh, they have like they know what they're doing. They're really moving forward and firing on all cylinders. I think they've made a couple missteps over the course of the various different expansions, but nothing that was like overall just like, oh, I that really set the game back overall, which I don't think they've done. But yeah, I'm glad that you've been able to step back into it and you're enjoying your experience with it, and I'm very excited for you to continue on that journey. Are you finding any success with it when you're streaming it, or is it?
Yeah. I mean, the community's, I would say 99% of the community is great. I will say, like, people like Chili come over. There's a lot of people that are real passionate and just want to experience the story again through someone else's eyes, which I
Mm.
love. A lot of people that help out, all of that great stuff. There, I mentioned this briefly. There was one time on YouTube, someone came into my channel and right away was just like, "You're doing all of this wrong and you need to change it now." And I was just like, "Well, here's my tip. I'm learning as I go. And if I cause you stress, maybe don't watch me, you know,
Yeah.
but it's been good. I'm enjoying it. And like I said, it's just like almost all of 2.0, I had like no emotional response to the story at all. And immediately following that through the patch content, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like I'm feeling something now. My
Yeah.
emotions are being touched, and even the cutscenes get better. There's more voice acting, which I know
Mm.
gets even more prominent. So yeah, I'm happy that I've made it past that major hump that is A Realm Reborn, and I'm just looking through to the rest of the story as well.
Yeah. Yeah, like I actually really appreciated it 2.0, namely as a 1.0 player going into the experience. And so like
Yeah.
there's essentially like it's always interesting to me to see people like and how they receive it. And I understand the critiques of 2.0, but I don't share in those views because it was like, wow, this is incredible. I can't believe we can finally do this now. And we always wanted to do that. And the controller support was just top tier. It's so funny to see how it's evolved over the course of time, though, because there were times when I think somebody was trying to talk crap about me. They're like, this is the guy that put all these buffs on the one macro. And it's like, yeah, because like when you would level down, like if you got synced down,
Yeah.
it wouldn't automatically adjust your skills. Like it was
Okay.
like you literally was like, I either want to use this skill or this skill or this skill as I level. So we'd have to use macros back in the day for kind of managing level sync
Yeah.
content, and now it's all just straight up handled, which is quite a nice quality of life feature, which saves a lot of lot of time on playing on a controller. But yeah, are you playing on a
Yeah.
controller? Just curious.
I briefly on my PlayStation 5 and my Steam Deck, I've done it, and that's
Mhm.
in the past too. I know that it's known for its, innovation in the domain of controller for MMO, but for me, I play so much on PC that I am just like I feel like I'm learning how to walk again a bit on
Mhm.
controller, but I do enjoy it. To your point, like I do want to be charitable, like knowing only from the stories about how rough 1.0 was as a launch, the way they did reboot it and then thematically bring that into the story as well. I get why they were kind of conservative with two
Mhm.
from the story perspective and all that, and just say, let's just give people a very core experience and go from there. So I understand that. Like, I don't want to say like it's, they messed up or it's trash or anything like that, but it definitely, you could see to your point about the orchestra warming up. They started to warm up after they rebooted, and I imagine it's going to start to really, really get good. So
Yeah, and that also I think parallels with a great transition into kind of No Rest for the Wicked, because it's one of those things where I hear a lot from players with Final Fantasy. It's like, oh man, I wish I had experienced 1.0. And while I think No Rest for the Wicked launched in early access has absolutely been incredibly stellar, it's makes me even more excited for the future because they don't have to go do massive amounts of rework to make the game playable and enjoyable and approachable to a degree, because it does have a challenge to it, which I really do appreciate. That Souls kind of, grittiness of like, yeah, this enemy, if you're not playing, you can't, just get lazy and just kind of run through and and just roll on everything all the time. But one of the things that I point out, though, especially now when people ask, should you play No Rest for the Wicked now or should you wait for release, is like, there's a magic that I find in kind of being a part of the evolution of any game. And that's speaks to Final Fantasy, that speaks to this game itself, is to see how it evolves, where it goes, where it was, to be able to say like, yeah, they tried that, it didn't work out, so then we created a different system. Or y'all remember when inventory was always capped at this number and how painful that ended up becoming, like having kind of those stories. Like back in my day, I used to walk uphill to school in the snow being shot at by Nazis. It's like, okay. It's like, all right, grandpa, thank you for that story. But like, I do kind of appreciate having all of that kind of connected in, and having that experience. And yes, you do have a copy, so I'm very curious as to if you're going to be able to make time for that game at some point.
I do need to make time for it. I do. I have it installed on my Steam Deck as well because I'm like, this is going to be a great experience. And yeah, I mean, it's clearly launching in early access, right? So I think you always have to go in with the right mentality. And I think there are definitely people that could play early access and just be done with it. But I feel like most people who go into it, they realize this is a work in progress. And it is exciting too. You learn a lot about the game design and game development process by experiencing that as well. And I never played Hades in early access, but I remember hearing about that game almost like a year or 2 years before it came out full scale on Switch. And I can't imagine what that was like, but it's because of the people that commit to the early version of the game where you get such a amazing experience after the fact. So yeah, I love action RPGs. I mean, isometric ARPGs in the first place. I started playing Souls games about 2 years ago, and I suffered my way through the first and third one. But yeah, this game looks right up my alley. I mean, to your point about getting lazy, like that's almost why I just ended up getting bored with Diablo 3. Diablo 3 felt so easy at a certain point. Even Diablo 4, I would have a pretty good build and go up to like the hardest difficulty and do nightmare dungeons. And I felt for the most part, I could just kind of cruise my way through. So I am curious. And what are your thoughts? Because this is Moon Studios, right? The developer.
This is Moon.
It feels such like a almost drastic change from Ori for them to make this game.
It is. They've stated that this game is going to be their magnum opus. Like they've been wanting to make this. They wanted to make it, but they also were like, as they were kind of getting, going, they found, real good success with Ori, which has got that Metrovania. I never really played the Ori series at all. And honestly, I have access to it. They don't own the Ori license. And so they don't know if they're going to be making Ori 3 or somebody else, most likely based off of their focus in on this game and success of this game, which I would feel like this game has definitely hit that level of success, that they're going to continue to kind of focus in on that. But they stated like, this is the game that they've wanted to make. I think this is the game that the help found their studio, and they really wanted to kind of jump in and experience it. A Wild Chrono has joined in the podcast. What's up, sir?
What's up, gentlemen? Sorry,
I
was clearing up some stuff before I hop in.
Dude, I get it, man.
Let me interrupt.
Oh man. So but that's going to be something interesting to see how with No Rest for the Wicked, how it evolves. They've already put out a roadmap. The number one question that I get, like I think on every video, is, hey, when do we know, or when would this be coming to consoles? Because that will instigate that it's out of early access and it's ready to release. But they also have said that they're going to be working on this 5-10 years after the 1.0 release, and that 1.0 will be their Fellowship of the Ring, which it's interesting terminology because there is such a grandeur, such a love for Lord of the Rings. To start kind of set that kind of comparison, I think shows both a lot of confidence and what they've already delivered. I'm like, yeah, I think they're not, they're smiling on the inside, because it's like, you're like, oh yeah, we've got this, and now it's just a function of time. Chrono, what are you playing right now, man? Why don't you give everybody an introduction to you, and let's keep going.
Well, yeah, sorry I'm late. Lately, I don't know. We just checked out the Fortnite Star Wars collab this morning, and that was fun. It's not as good as last year's, to be honest. Last year it felt like a bigger event. This year it just feels like here's some stuff you can buy, and that's the end of it.
Mhm.
And then honestly, just still working on Tears of the Kingdom because that game is really long, and I get distracted.
It's a
Dude, I
good
feel
game.
you.
It's a good game.
I'm waiting for the Switch too. Like
Yeah.
I stated, like I was like, oh, and it's like, yeah, you could hack it to put it on your Steam Deck to get it at 60 frames a second, and I was like, there's a part of me that's just like, I think I'll wait. I'll wait on the Switch too. But that's a perfect kind of transition to kind of talk about what Mark, you made a video talking about Switch 2 rumors.
Yeah.
Is there any merit to that? Is there anything that we need to, like, hang our hats on? Or because I feel like 2025, or is it that we've, at the summertime, former E3 time,
Yeah.
that Nintendo just comes out on stage and been like, Switch 2, it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the one rumor that I did kind of, give a I don't that's the one I don't see happening, but there's the other aspect of like Nintendo typically has a pretty good timeline for first party content throughout the year, and after Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, there's really nothing first party wise that is going to be a big seller for him. So that does make me wonder come June when these publishers, hardware manufacturers do start to do these type of events, do we hear something then? Most of the leaks I found credible because they're pretty consistent stories we've heard for a while now, and they line up with sources like Digital Foundry verifying, like the Tegra T239 system on a chip, DLSS, machine learning acceleration. That makes sense if you think about this story that came out again that I thought was pretty credible as well from VGC almost 8-9 months ago too, with them doing a Breath of the Wild demo. Why would you show that? I mean, there could be all kinds of reasons, but I almost feel like they in the modern world of consoles where we do get enhanced versions of previous generation games, that right away made perfect sense to me, right? Especially if they were also doing the epic Matrix Awakens demo too. So
Mhm.
the biggest part that makes me happy is it does seem like we are going to get backwards compatibility, which
That is, go ahead, Chrono.
I would
Yeah,
say
go
if they do not do back compat, I think we just have another like Wii U situation
Oh,
where people are like, why do I buy this? Like, why
yep.
am I investing in this at all? But I think that's why Nintendo is playing it so close to the chest this time around, is because they don't want to confuse people by the time it launches. So they're trying to like get everything Switch out of the way. That's why
Yep.
Luigi's Mansion 2 is it for the year,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised that Nintendo is being very careful with how they follow up probably their best system, right? Like sales wise, it's trailing on the Wii by a little bit.
Where
It-
is my not Breath of the Wild? Where is my Wind Waker Switch port, guys?
Right.
That's been
I,
rumored for a
On
while,
the
right?
Wii U.
the
Like,
the
that in and of itself, like,
they need to free all of these Wii U games up. Like they need to. I don't see why they haven't, but it's probably like, hey, when the Switch 2 launches, we'll put these HD ports out that everybody's been wanting. I don't know. I'm still waiting on F-Zero to come back in some way, right? Because F-Zero GX has been rumored forever.
Yeah, and I always think there's always a hint of truth to those rumors with Nintendo. So whether it's just they're just waiting, right? Nintendo has games finished sometimes for like 3
Mhm.
years and they're just holding on to. And so I could see that being with especially since F-Zero 99, like
yeah.
that was brilliant first off, but I also feel like that's a really good way to say, "Hey guys, remember this franchise? Oh,
Mhm.
you didn't know the franchise, now you know it a little bit more, so maybe they do lean forward. Maybe that's a launch game, who knows? But that was a great way to raise the equity of the brand and the gamers consciousness. To your point, Chrono, I agree. Like if Nintendo dropped backwards compatibility, that would have been just such a boneheaded move. The Switch
Mhm.
sold, I think, as of September 2023, over 1.3 billion units of software. So the most software ever sold on the
Mhm.
Nintendo console. And if you think about it, the one issue they've always had was their account management system, right?
Yeah.
It sucks. Like I
It's better now than it has
Better.
ever been, but
yes.
it's still it's the Nintendo like way, right? They've got to do
Mhm.
it their own way, and because of that, it's going to be super different and clunky and awkward every single time.
And it's gonna take time, right? Because that's not really their expertise creating that type of technology and software. So
Mhm.
when we got the confirmation in a financial meeting probably over a year ago now that that system is going to carry over, it's going to be the universal system everywhere. That made me go, okay, backwards compatibility is definitely coming because now they have a way to link it, and they're going to be using the evolution of the system on a chip on the Switch that could easily have backwards compatibility from a hardware perspective built in. So, yeah, there was a lot of other rumors too. Chrono, did you see the leaks come out this past week?
I talked about him a little bit on stream with the magnetic Joy-Cons, and then the dock featuring the 4K like compatibility in the dock, which is
Yeah.
something I thought was going to happen when the OLED, before it was the OLED, when it was like the Switch 2, was that they were
Okay.
just going to release an upgraded dock, and that would be the way to do the Switch Pro, was
Yeah.
just make it a TV console by way of the dock. But the hardware limitations of the original Tegra prevented that from being reality.
Now, chat sounded off with Kylo saying we're waiting for Dragon Quest 2D HD remastered. I am as well. I've been watching every Nintendo event, hoping for some Dragon Quest news. I do want to take the conversation on that with chat for just a second, because this week also Square Enix announced over $140 million that they had in losses, and that they're going to once again restructure their strategies. And I don't know how much of that was just this week alone or this month, or how much of that is already kind of happened. They already had that restructuring back like in January with the new CEO. And then the news is just coming out when it comes to their quarterly reports, namely because they continue to also been doing these very, long exclusivity deals with like, PlayStation in this case, which I think is hurting them. I think
Yep.
that is in and of
Yeah.
itself is actually hurting them. So when it comes to that, with building off of Nintendo going into Square Enix, do you guys have any thoughts about that this week?
I hope Dragon Quest HD Remake isn't one of the canceled games. I mean, they did announce that they were canceling some HD games, right? And that was a weird way to phrase it, right? Like, what does that mean? Almost all games are HD nowadays.
Yeah.
But the one thing, and I know, Brian, we've had conversations related to this. Those Pixel HD remakes, those are very expensive from an art direction perspective. Like if they're doing true pixel assets in that HD style, like that is going to be your biggest cost almost on that budget. And they may look at that and say, hey, let's trim that out. But I don't know. It's, if you look at total sales for Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy 15 is like one of the best performing ever. And that game is, I mean, I like it, but most people I feel like are like, okay. But it's because it launched everywhere all at once. PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4, day one. That's what I think they need to get back to.
Yep. I will 100% agree. I was hoping Final Fantasy 9 the remake isn't canceled in that group as well. But
yeah, that would be a wrong.
Like,
that would be a bad thing to cancel.
Last we heard in way of rumors and leaks and stuff is that it was basically done. It's just not going to be this big old remake like Final Fantasy 7 remake is. But yeah, I seriously stand by the fact that they've restricted Final Fantasy 16 to PS5 exclusivity at launch, and we still don't have Final Fantasy 7 remake on Xbox at all.
Right.
I think they're just reaping what they've sowed at this point. I get why they would chase that exclusivity money. I mean, if Sony's going to offer up the deal, secure the bag. But long term, that should have been. We should have at least remake integrate on Xbox by now, even if Rebirth doesn't come out for another couple of years.
Right. Even if it's like you kind of set the expectation, like, hey, yeah, where I feel the industry is moving into that kind of concept of the timed exclusive, as opposed to the pure exclusive, which I think 7 remake right now feels more like as close to a pure exclusive as you can get, because it's also on PC. And I'm enjoying it. Like, I'm really impressed by 7 remake, and then building off of 16. I really love 16, but I get the critiques that people have leveraged against it after finally stepping into 7 remake, going like, holy crap, this is really exciting. This is the Square Enix that I think is functioning well. And then you also have all these other things that they keep coming out with and canceling. You have Flame Stars that I think that might, who knows? I don't know how well that's doing, but I would assume not well. Then you have Babylon's Fall coming in and going out just as pretty much quickly. And so they feel like, I don't know what their overall vision is. And there was that big drive that they kept pushing, which was NFTs and crypto and all that.
Hurt too.
I think that hurt a lot of
people. Yeah.
So when it's all said and done, I'm very curious to see what their future holds, because $140 million is a lot. They've also lost a lot of market value since Final Fantasy 16 came out, in which that once they announced that Final Fantasy 14's expansion wasn't going out last year, which, you know, if you were following us any period of time, we were confirming that well before it was confirmed by Square Enix. That's where like the market kind of responded, and it's going to be interesting to see with the new CEO what changes kind of trickle out. And if any of the Dragon Quest games got canceled, I think that's going to be a real loss. If Final Fantasy 9 remake gets the axe, I think that's going to be a real loss for gamers in that regards, because I love that 7 remake is introducing a whole new generation of people into the genre, and that's one of the strengths of 16. It's really done well with more young people because of the combat that it offers. And it's like, as much as I like turn-based, I would like to see kind of Final Fantasy, even with Octopath Traveler and more, branch into kind of these different avenues. Like, we've got our turn-based Final Fantasies, we've got our action Final Fantasies, we've got our online Final Fantasies. So it's going to be an interesting future for sure.
Yeah. There's a question there in the chat, Brian. I don't know if you wanted me to talk to that or, but about the why are pixel assets more expensive? So for some context, I am a part of a game dev company. I am not the art guy, but I've been told this by my developers and art guys, right? So 3D assets actually are cheaper to work with, right? Because when you make one 3D asset in a Blender or whatever it is, that's the asset that you then go bend and pose and use throughout any scene. When it comes to pixel art, if like Star Ocean Second Story art, let's say that's true pixel art, or Octopath Traveler 2, right? Each single position or frame you see that pixel art in has to be redone for that scene, for that screen, for that moment. So any type of animation or anything that creates very specific artwork, just labor behind it. So you can, you could do the true pixel experience, or what some games do is they'll take a 3D asset and put like a 2D shader on it, so it looks like a 2D asset, but it's still a 3D model in the background, and that allows it to be a little bit more of an affordable approach to still get that look and feel. So pixel artists, they fetch a pretty penny, and honestly, they're not as ubiquitous as 3D artists are nowadays too, just because of the industry. So that impacts the cost as well. But that, again, I learned that this past year. I was like, oh, that makes sense, But it is kind of interesting to find out.
Yeah, and that actually is the plan that we're doing with the game that I'm working on, which is going with the 3D with the 2D shader attached to it, just to help manage costs and more, which is, I think, it's going to be fun. I can't wait to share more about that progress with you guys, especially the members here in the future. But we talked about Switch 2? We talked about Square Enix's news. Is there anything before we move on to our next subject that you guys want to kind of touch on with a final thought on any of those stories today?
I don't know how Square operates internally. It just befuddles me, because there really seems to be some really smart companies in the Japanese business world, and I just don't know how Square looks at all the numbers and goes, yeah, let's take that exclusivity money, even though it's gonna really train wreck us in the long term too. So I just don't get it. I really don't get it.
Yeah, two things with Square is one, they've got a lot of support through Disney, and we haven't seen anything on Kingdom Hearts 4 since that teaser, 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
And then there's a big mobile app supposed to come out, that would help maybe in terms of microtransactions. I don't know. But the last thing is, I don't know why they've been waiting so long, or they haven't touched Chrono Trigger in any way, shape, or form. Like, literally would put them in a good spot to just be more creative if they just did it either flat out re-release. That would be fine. Put it on Switch online via SNES. I'm sure Nintendo would be happy to pay for that. Or go all in on an HD 2D remake that everybody would love. Everybody would pay out the wazoo for. They could do, $150 collector's edition if they wanted to, and it would sell. You wouldn't be able to get it anywhere.
I would it'd be hard for me not to throw as much money at the screen as possible.
Right.
With that. Like, yeah, but here you go. Because I spent a pretty penny on Final Fantasy 16. Anything with a Chrono Trigger remake or remaster or HD 2D, like 100%.
I honestly was surprised that the Chrono Cross re-release even happened.
Yeah.
And then we've got one of the greatest RPGs of all time that they have yet to touch since re-releasing it on the DS and then the Steam port of that. You know, like where is that? What are they doing? But you're right. In terms of management, what are they doing? You know,
I don't get it. And that's honestly my great shame. I'll share with you. I've never played Chrono Trigger. There's a part of me that's like, I could play it on Steam, but maybe they'll re-release it, right? And
I run into that same mindset with a couple of games of like, oh man, I wish I never got into that game back in, the day. People seem to talk about it fondly. Oh, wait, they might re-release that. I'm gonna
fun
sit and wait
fact,
for that.
as much of a fan as I am of Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger being pretty much my channel's namesake, I've never finished it, and I've never finished a Final Fantasy game ever.
Oh.
I've gotten very close to the end of 15 just for me to have like put it away and not come back to it. So
I have that similar approach to Final Fantasy games where I play them like and just consume, and then I take a long ass break, and then I come back and I finish them. That's how I played it. Now 15 is an exception because I played that start to finish, and I actually really enjoyed 15. They continued to support it and make it better. I think the 15's failure was that it was to get the entire story, you have to go into so many different areas. It wasn't self-contained within the game. So you could play the game and be like, oh, that was neat. But what was really going on? Did you see the movie? Did you read the comics? Did you watch the YouTube videos? Did you,
it's the Halo effect. Once Halo went into like heavy important lore in the novels and offshoots and comics, it's just like nobody knows what's going on anymore.
What about a Final Fantasy Tactics remake or remaster? Because that game in and of itself, I think, is one of the all-time greats of Final Fantasies. And it doesn't exist on PC right now. You have to go and use like Android emulation software to download the Android version, which I've done. But I think a true remaster HD 2D, like whatever they wanted to do, like even if they just did a flat out port to Steam, I'd accept it. But I think Tactics would be a beautiful series alongside Chrono Trigger to really help, kind of refresh that series overall. We haven't
100%.
seen a new entry into that. We saw Triangle Strategy. I don't know if either of you played that game. I think it's incredible. Like it's incredible. And I think eventually, like because I picked it up on Switch, I think it's now out on Steam, and Square Enix is starting to slowly support GeForce now. They're doing it with the Octopath Traveler games, so I might be purchasing that game again so I can actually kind of play it a little bit more everywhere. But yeah, I think that'd be cool.
I know people want that. I think in November of 2023, they were kind of saying nothing's planned, but I feel like, that's got to be one of the IPs they're just sitting on, whether it's a remake or a new entry in that style of game, because there is an appetite for tactics games. We've seen that a lot over the last years with indie games and more mainline IPs. So,
and there was like a follow-up to Tactics on the DS, right? It was like A2.
Tactics Advance and A2. So there was two follow-ups on the
Okay, so have either of those been re-released at all?
No.
See, like they could do a Tactics collection, test the market, how well does that sell, and then do a new entry. Like I don't understand why they don't prioritize, as safe as the industry has been with re-releases and remakes. Square is just not capitalizing on the things that just would make them some bank, at least in the short term.
Agreed. Yeah. Now, speaking of things that we just don't understand, this is a good way to talk about Xbox. I see online this week, Ches Corden had kind of some Discord conversations. All the games are coming to PlayStation and so much more. Where do you guys fall within this? Because for me, just to kind of summarize it, is how are people still surprised? I've been saying this for years. And then I think there are just some people who are just like, Microsoft's going to pivot. They're going to go back to like focusing in on exclusivity, and that's going to save the Xbox. It's like, no, they view any screen as an Xbox, and they're going to put games everywhere that they physically can be put. What do you guys, how do you guys feel?
Once they said that, they were a platform, like the software, Xbox is a brand, as a platform, not a piece of hardware. Yeah. I think that was pretty obvious what they meant.
Yeah. I haven't been surprised about anything for the last 2 years. I'm at the point where just rip the cord. Rip the
Yeah.
cord, put everything over. I'll support. Like I would love to play Halo on my PlayStation and my Switch. Are you
Yes.
kidding me? Give me
Yeah.
that.
Inject new life into Halo Infinite by bringing over the millions of PlayStation players.
and watch how the Xbox tax is all of a sudden, oh, this game actually was good. Bring Starfield over and watch how all of a sudden it's not
who
a crap game.
The top selling games on the PlayStation Store were when
Xbox's
CFDs. Like, it's like, come on, like just
And the
they need-
Metacritic score, right? And this
Mhm.
also shows that it's like like obviously, yeah, and it's that over on an Xbox as well. But
Sure.
because the studios don't review games as
Yeah.
like updates
Yeah.
and stuff come out, then you end up having that kind of curse that is kind of like dragging you down in the long run.
Yeah.
Oof.
I feel like, Microsoft's messaging at times hasn't necessarily been the best. I'm always like, why don't you just be more honest, right?
Honest,
But
just direct. Just be
but
direct.
like, because the whole idea of like, oh, we want the save the box itself, save the hardware. If you look at the numbers, just the economy of the gaming industry, the Western market is slowing down, and gaming hardware, consoles specifically, are maturing. So there's not a lot of growth there. All of the growth and profit is happening in the East, and it's happening on cloud gaming and mobile gaming. So that's why all these companies, like, I don't want to play my games on my phone, but that's why a lot of these companies are like exploring ways to deliver these popular brands on those devices, is because that's where the growth is. So, 20 years from now, I don't know what gaming hardware looks like globally. I don't. Maybe it's all on TVs. Like
It is. It's just going to be an app on your TV for the vast majority of people. It already actually is an app on your TV if you have a smart TV with GeForce Now, for example.
Well,
You just
not
turn
even
it on and there's your games.
Yep.
Not even cloud streaming aside, because I mean, I think it's a perfectly viable way to enjoy games, but with the performance we're seeing from ARM based architecture,
Mhm.
like there's no reason a smart TV wouldn't just be able to run,
Yep.
Xbox games, PlayStation games in a few years. Like I think
Yeah,
it's right
mobile
around the
phones
corner.
as well. Like you could end up
Yeah.
having that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just going to be a whole different landscape.
I do think Nintendo was very smart, and I don't know if I imagine they thought about this, but knowing how the market for hardware is slowing down, they consolidated their handheld and home
Mhm.
console market with the Switch. To your
Yeah.
point about ARM processors, these basically smartphone system on a chips, they're getting so advanced. I wouldn't be surprised where in the next 10 years you don't start to see like a Microsoft hardware device that does that in a way, or a PlayStation device as well, right? Like there's been rumors about a new PS Vita, which makes me happy, but like why not there be a future where that's the case, where the performance is such parity between just docking it and taking it with you? Because
Right.
that is a way for these companies to grow their market too, by having that new use case. So I mean, I could see that happening, but I do think we'll just go more towards just cloud gaming.
But even beyond like cloud game streaming, because like, the use case is there. It is there are obviously still hurdles and internet isn't available to be able to support it, worldwide yet, but that is just a function of time. But the other thing a lot of people miss in the conversation from a technological perspective, and I think any of us in tech can recognize this, cloud compute. It's a matter of that they can offload, they can offset various different processes. So you can actually either have a cheaper physical hardware. Yes, it's going to require the internet, but you can also, from just a form factor and cost, you can offload that cost into a server farm where then you can, in a way, you're subsidizing that. So you don't end up having, and then that scales as hardware goes. So you don't find yourself physically locked into like, well, we made this call, 5 years ago, and it's going to be another 2 years, and we're kind of have to deal with it before the next generational shift happens. And I don't think we're going to see generational shifts like we had before. Digital libraries are like, a thing. How hard is it going to be to switch from an iPhone to an Android or vice versa when you have all of your apps and all the time invested in the platform? We see the same thing with PlayStation. So bringing Xbox to PlayStation, which they already started. And I think that's where I agree with you, Mark. I wish their messaging was more direct, because you do have people who are under the belief that this isn't happening, and that's just a grieving process that's gonna take on. But I think it's gonna free up Xbox. I've been stating this for a long time now, and I've really doubled down. I was like, guys, it's gonna become Xbox PC, and I only put those words together so that basically they're gonna stop limiting the operating system, which runs Windows, which is a Windows-based machine, meaning Steam will be able to be run and installed in the games, and as long as the game can run on the hardware, then you're fine. And I know there are people out there coping pretty hard saying that PlayStation will block their games from Xbox specifically. And I was like, yeah, that's just good. If they do that, the lawsuits will entail. Like, you bought it through Steam, PlayStation got their cut. It's just running on specific hardware. I don't think that's going to fly in the long run. And I honestly don't think it's in PlayStation's best interest at that point. They clearly won the console war. Good job, PlayStation. But now we're entering in an entirely different kind of landscape for video games. And I just, like, I know a lot of people don't like me saying that, but it's going to be one of those. That's why I think I tweeted out, like, hashtag Ginger Prime was right again. It's like, because at some point, like, it's like, yeah, you call me whatever names you want, but this is something that continues to prove itself out. And I think it's a function of time.
I think a few years ago, I probably, and I say a few, but it's probably like 10 years ago, I probably been like, that's insane. There's no way. But if we just look at just the way Microsoft has been headed as an entire corporation, they'll still produce Xbox hardware, but you're right. It'll just be a PC, maybe pared down. I would like to see it retain that ease of access console experience, where when you load up a game, you're not having to go configure settings. It's going to be set for you.
That's what people want. They want that ease of access. Yeah.
Right. So keep that mentality, but then you have, just like Microsoft makes Surface tablets and laptops, you'll have them make Xbox consoles, and they will just run Steam and Epic Games and whatever else. And then, you finally get stuff that would never be on Xbox right now for whatever reason, but stuff like Genshin Impact, that's a huge game. It could run on the Xbox right now. Just,
easy.
You're just limited by the licensing on the hardware. Whereas if Microsoft just goes, hey, it's a PC now without all of the PC bells and whistles, then there's nothing that would stop them from doing that.
It's ease of access, which is going to be a critical component of what defines a console, because PC gaming is going to be PC gaming, and you can tweak it in your drivers and all of that. What I think is that we see that that licensing of the operating system and the interface, so that things like the Rogue Ally, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're just going to take on that interface, and it's just going to work. You got your store, your games, your friends list, it's just going to be and then I could see other manufacturers coming in, and so you end up having various different SKUs where, like, okay, this is the Xbox version, the Surface kind of team has made this. Dell decided that they wanted to go ahead and make their own version of that, and they're going to put in some real, like, you can, then as a player, if you don't have the internet or you don't want the cloud, you can buy the hardware that's going to process that,
right?
And and I could probably see them adding in that, like, boot to Xbox UI for Windows, so that if you just had one to, like, say, I'm just gonna build my own PC and I'm just gonna do that, I could see them doing that as well. So
and then you get some other, like, benefits from that as well, where, like, there's 360 games that are only on Xbox hardware, that are backwards compatible. Well, now they could run on this PC OS, no problem. And so then you have PC players now able to access an entire library of games that they most of these have been ported in some way, but there's still a few exclusives there. And I think Microsoft, their whole goal is how many people can play games all at the same time. Like, we want the maximum number of players subscribing to our services and using our software.
Speaking of statistics, we've seen news this week about Helldivers 2 and PlayStation pulling in and forcing account linking to the PlayStation Network. I do think, and I think Chili tweeting out about this, I do think that that means we're going to see the rumored PlayStation storefront on PC coming into play. I don't know if that means they're going to pull off of Steam, but also back to my thing about Xbox is, like, well, if they have it run on Windows, there's nothing to say you can't have your PlayStation Store, launcher on, your Xbox. Go ahead.
Didn't we see EA do this? When they launched Origin, they pulled all their stuff off Steam, and now look, EA games are back on Steam. So
it wasn't a good move. Like, I think what you do is you just keep it everywhere. But then, yes, if you don't want to pay the Steam fee and people want to just go buy through the PlayStation PC store, like, it's just dealer's choice, right? Like, you're just like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to play it here. But then if you pull from those different platforms, I don't think you get that goodwill to where someone's like, oh, okay, like, I'm, because people like being in the Steam ecosystem, or I would assume there are people out there who are real epic, store, ecosystems, but limiting those kind of games across the different systems, I think limits.
I think digital libraries just kind of keep people where they are, right?
Right.
I mean, one of the reasons I buy an Xbox every time they come out is because since the 360 and all the backwards compatibility and everything that goes with that, I can still access like most of my digital library. And
Yeah.
why would I give that up? You know, like those are games I may not play them often, but I certainly don't want to not be able to ever play them again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Phil Spencer did say that, it was like last spring, like we
Mhm.
lost the worst console generation to
Mhm.
lose when it came to the PS4, Xbox One, because that's when more digital libraries were created. And like
Yep.
it does keep you in there. Like I've talked to people about it. They're like, well, no, if there was some good first party games, I would buy the new system. Like,
Mm.
there are good first party games. And I'll be fair, I do think PlayStation they do a better job at first party
Absolutely.
games.
And
Yeah,
and exclusives because they
exclusive,
also
yeah.
yeah, they open up that checkbook and make it happen.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I just there's going to be a day and age where the way we game is going to be archaic, and people are going to game in a completely new way. And to the Helldivers 2 phenomenon, I just feel like the messaging was bad.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
What
usually what
games
it is.
don't
I blame
what
marketing usually.
like
Yeah.
what games don't do this? Like doesn't Halo on Steam require a Microsoft account?
Yep.
you log in.
Why are nobody got mad? And that could just be that maybe Halo is just not as relevant. But what's the detriment to logging in?
I don't see it. And essentially though, I think it's just the curve of acceptance. The first thing with news, like, wait, what? And obviously this will help drive up their the PlayStation, monthly active user reports, etc. When all of a sudden it's like, hey,
Yeah.
because the majority of people are playing Helldivers 2 on PC, I think it's just gonna be like, yep, the news, is here. Oh, it turns out like, yeah, you're linked to the PlayStation, app. Okay, I did that. I'm still playing, I'm still having fun. And going for there. And it's just gonna be that like first is like, oh, I'm happy, and then it's like you accept it, and then you're like, oh, it wasn't as bad
Yeah.
as I thought.
When I play a Minecraft game on my Switch, I log into my Xbox account, right? I think that the challenge is, and Chili mentioned it, it didn't launch with it. And so now people are kind of surprised by it. But I also do wonder, Chris from Devour Games, he mentioned to me that PSN accounts aren't supported in every region, which does make me wonder, how does that impact the Steam players who are playing it in these regions, right? What's the solution there? It can't be refunds. Do they just exclude those folks too? But it's a shame because Arrowhead Studios is getting a lot of heat today, and there's a part of me that
I want to see how that plays out. It's like,
yeah,
The Steam score has been tanking slowly.
that's
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 I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but I could see people changing their reviews. I don't know if Steam allows that, but like I could see people updating their thoughts on the game.
I
But
just
it
don't put
seems
a lot
silly.
of value in the mindset of the mob.
yeah.
Like it's like, oh, and then because people are like, I'm gonna join in on this, we're all mad, and it's like eventually it's like it really will depend on how does next week feel, how does the following week feel, do we
Yeah.
really see a long lasting impact of this change? And right now, based off of the game, all the game has to be as fun. And I think people will check it out. We'll see what happens though. Like I'm not saying you're wrong if you're mad. I'm just like
I don't think it's going to impact player count at all.
No,
I think
no.
the loud minority of people who are on Twitter or Reddit or whatever, they're going to be loud. And there's questions to ask, sure, but in the end, people are going to keep playing the game. And there's a part of me that's like, man, there's some ironic humor Arrowhead could play with, because this is a good example of managed democracy in some sense, in terms of what the game's all about and what's happening here, right? And but yeah, like I enjoy the fact that when I play Minecraft, Minecraft Dungeons on my Switch, I was getting Xbox achievements too, right? And
yeah.
I have a PlayStation account. Is my PS Star system going to benefit from this when I play PlayStation games on my PC? Ghost of
Right. All of a
Tsushima,
sudden I'm unlocking trophies over, on my PlayStation. I'm not against it at all. Like I think
Yeah.
this also is them signaling more PC level support. Like I think
Yeah.
this is just like I remember like because I don't know if a lot of gamers out there, depending on how old you are, remember, but I remember when Steam came out with Half-Life 2 and gamers were pissed because you had to have a Steam account to play Half-Life 2 and they
Yeah.
were pissed. And here we are years later, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess we're just kind of used to that now. And so when it comes down to PlayStation, this is them bringing it in. We've heard, like you said, Ghosts bringing it in with unlocking achievements. That actually, like the trophies, that sounds great to me because I could tell you when it comes to achievements and trophies, my trophy case is very bare, but my achievements are usually there because it's all Xbox on PC linked, etc.
Yeah.
So like whatever I'm playing, it's unlocking something on that side of my gamer profile, but on the PlayStation, it is usually very, very bare.
Yeah.
It's just it's interesting that it's like Microsoft's been doing this like requiring logins for a few years now. And I don't think there was any pushback when it launched. I think people were just like, "Oh, I guess I have to go make a Microsoft account now."
Some people push back on the Microsoft account because, like, if we look at the downfall of Mixer, like Ninja even kind of communicated, like it's so hard to get people to sign up for Mixer because of the Microsoft account
Yeah.
aspect of it, and it's just the extra level of step because you
Yeah.
couldn't just make a Mixer login,
Yeah.
in that regard. So, like, I get that, and I've heard people kind of push back on it, but ultimately it's such a short amount of time because eventually you either want to play the game so much that you just kind of go through that process. And the thing about the Microsoft account and the PSN account, it is light years ahead of the Square Enix account.
Mhm.
And if you guys have ever had to work in the Square Enix account system, it is the most broken, befuddled mess that ever has existed.
So
And yeah,
installing Final Fantasy 14 on my Xbox, and then having to, like, I went and just made sure because I knew I had a Square Enix account, but it's been years since I've used it. So I logged in and I was like, "What is even this website? Like, what is this, like,
Yeah.
2008?"
Mhm.
Like, it is rough.
yeah, it is rough.
I feel like Bethesda games, like I don't know if it was required or not, but I did it. But when I played Doom Eternal for the first time, I logged into my Bethesda account, and because it prompted me, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of annoying," but I really want to play this game. And I guess in the end of the day, like I don't want to have 70 accounts everywhere, but there are
Mhm.
some core systems where if I'm getting value out of it, if I'm getting some
Mhm.
type of benefit, like Chili mentioned, how PS stars, the more trophies you get discounts towards games, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
if there's some trade off to that, I'm typically okay with it. I do think there could be a scenario where it becomes too much, where Ubisoft requires you to log into their account system, which, by the way, they actually have a decent, like, I don't know if anyone else plays Ubisoft games and use their account system, but like I get points for any Ubisoft game I play that gives me content in the game. So I
Yeah.
don't mind that.
Yeah.
But there definitely could be an overdoing of it. But with PlayStation, I feel like they almost have to, considering their role in the gaming industry. So
Mhm.
All right, guys, that was a great discussion. Y'all have time for 20 questions because I have a game to play. Are you guys ready?
yeah, go for it.
All
Sure.
right. I'm gonna give you guys an option. I actually have three different games that we can pick from. I'm not gonna tell you what, but you guys pick a number between 1 and 3, and then we will get started.
Krena, you go first. I'm
Uh,
scared.
Pick a number between 1 and 3. I'm gonna
Mhm.
go 2.
Okay.
I guess I'll
All right.
go 3.
Okay, cool. All right, we're gonna go with 2. In this case, because we have to pick one. We're not 20 questions, got to get 2 games. Like, that's hard mode. That's Souls 20 questions. It's like, all right, we got multiple games. So you guys have 20 questions. For those of you who've never played this game, you have you can ask any yes or no question. I will answer. And if for some reason the answer is vague, I'll try to give you guys every opportunity to. I don't want to steer you down the wrong paths. So I do have the wiki up for this specific game. So, guys, Chrono, you're new here. Why don't you take the first question?
Okay. Was it released in the last 5 years?
No, it was not.
Is it a first party game for a specific hardware manufacturer?
Yes, it is.
Hmm. Is it a first person shooter?
Oh, okay. So this is going to be where it's a difficult to kind of answer. I wouldn't say like in the typical shooty shooty bang bang, but yes, there's first person shooting aspects to it.
Okay.
Sorry to be that. I'm hopefully I didn't steer you guys in the wrong region, wrong way.
So it's camera perspective is first person?
That is correct for some parts of the game.
All right.
I think that's 3.
uh is it developed by a Japanese publisher or
It is.
developer?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily dwindle it down for us, but
It does. It takes a lot of players off the board.
fair enough. Fair enough. Is it a game that was released by Sony?
No. That's 5.
All right. Is it a game that was released by Nintendo?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I have thoughts.
Oh yeah. Is it GoldenEye?
It is not.
Okay. Yeah.
Going for the big swing, not even
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now that I think about your answers to the last questions, I was like, oh no, never mind. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I mean, do I just go for it? Do I just throw my guess out there? I guess
Well,
we should.
or you can whittle it down. I mean, you got plenty. You got plenty of questions. You're only on 7 right now.
I'm gonna go for it. Is it Metroid Other M?
No,
Ah, dang.
Is it a Metroid game?
it is.
Ah, I was in the right neighborhood.
Yeah.
Is it Metroid Prime?
It is in 10 questions.
Let's go.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da.
Look at us.
Way to go. The other 2 games that I like, number 1 was going to be SimCity for the SNES. And I thought, I was like, man, that might be really more obscure. I loved that game. And the other, number 3 was Halo 2.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, so that's we'll have to shuffle the deck and do some more. But I think that's the record. Have we Chili, if you, I know you've been part of the shows. I think that's the record. We haven't seen anybody get in 10 and under yet. So
Beginner's luck.
hey man, it's a fun game to play. Chrono, where can people find you, dude?
You find me on Twitch, Chrono32123. Sorry for the numbers. It's legacy. You find me on YouTube with the same handle. Find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I'm there too. Basically everywhere that is meaningful anyway. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Live most mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. for morning streams, and then a couple times a week doing various longer streams.
All right, Mark, how about you, man?
You could find me on Twitch at Late to the Game with an underscore hyphen between 2 and the, because it's been taken. And then same on YouTube, Late to the Game. I'm streaming Final Fantasy 14 right now. So if you're interested in streams of that, that's what I'm doing. I'm probably going to do it actually right after this podcast. And then on YouTube, the whole idea, like, you know, we've talked about it, Brian. Busy guy, missed a lot of games like Chrono Trigger in my lifetime. So I'm going back and just playing games that are relatively older in a sense, a year or more, and kind of just doing more of a retrospective review in some sense,
Nice.
along with some gaming news as well, which I really like. It's given me an avenue and justification to do something with my stupid long backlog. So yeah, I'm working on a video for Xenoblade Chronicles that I'm hoping to get up soon. And you mentioned earlier, I just got a Nintendo Switch 2 leak video up that people are enjoying, except that one guy from Sicily. He's upset at me, but it's okay.
Oh, you got to watch out for the Sicilians, man.
I agree. I'm one of them. We can be shady.
Oh, we are shady. Like, I'm a Sicilian as well, so it's like there's some family events that I'm like, well, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Both of these guys are tagged in the description of this video here on Ginger Prime. So please go give them a follow and check out their content. Absolutely amazing guys. Fun to talk to, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. For me, I'm waiting for the patch notes to drop for the big update for No Rest for the Wicked today. So I am literally on standby. They set out, buckle up. So I think this is going to be pretty big, pretty substantial. I'm betting key mapping comes in, and if I'm wrong, then I'll be gifting out 5 members to the community. Most likely, we'll find out tonight, because Julie also has said that I can come and play some video games and stream, which is a real treat. Something I'm looking forward to. Beyond that, guys, got some guides that are in the hopper, and I've been just, I just can't stop with the No Rest, man. And it's been great. So I'm very much excited for that. And yes, gonna farm up those XP potions. Agreed, because that's gonna be fun to be able to, as soon as I hit I can put those in my stash, and then I'm gonna work on another character and then another character, because I'm addicted. So guys, if you have tuned in for the live show, thank you guys so much. If you're watching this, thank you for being a member, or thank you for being subscribed over on the audio version of the podcast. For those of you who missed the start of the show, the live VODs, etc., will go into kind of members on Ginger Prime. You can always watch them for free over at Work to Game. And then the audio is still obviously free to everybody there. If you want to go subscribe to the audio version of the podcast, check the top link in the description. You can find both Epic Loot Radio and Crystal Core Radio over there as well. And we'll be back next week for another show covering gaming news, Final Fantasy stuff, so much fun stuff. So I thank you all, everybody who has come to hang out with us for the live show today, and wish you guys all the very best. We're going to wrap it up, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.